how many values in common do you need to have with your partner, life partner? Because
the important ones. It's not how many, but there are a few of them that are really
like
important.
Which ones would you say that
I'll
make or break based on your experience?
I think I'm not going to say them in order of importance, but one of them that really matters is your relationship to others. If you are a person that values relationships, that sees the presence of others in your life as central, and you are with somebody who does not want community or does not know how, I mean, I'm talking not about what they would like to learn through you, but their value is you do things alone, you live alone, you rely on yourself, you don't bring people over to the house. I have a couple I just spoke with yesterday, and he loves to have people over, and nobody should come ever to the house.
She wants her space.
Her space,
alone,
the whole thing. And I'm thinking, wow, this is a tough one. It's not just about the house. It's his whole life is about being with people. And her whole life is about not being with people necessarily. That's not how she experiences it. Now the question is she drawn to more of what he has to offer? And is he drawn to more of what she... If these are totally...
more,
Then, okay, it's different values come together and they mix and match. But if you have these two separations like that, so that's one. One of the beautiful questions I ask in How Is Work is, were you raised for autonomy or were you raised for loyalty? Were you raised for self-reliance or were you raised for interdependence? Which one would you say?
For me, was that self-reliance meaning what?
Nobody will ever help you as well as you can help yourself. You only have yourself to count on. Don't trust people. You're on your own, buddy.
Or raised for loyalty.
Interdependence, loyalty. You're never alone. There's people around you. You owe others. Others are there for you. Relationships is what makes you.
I think I was both. Based on like circumstances.
Correct.
Like
the circumstances made you reliable because you were alone with mom, but the messaging was, you have me.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think both.
I think that question is a fundamentally interesting question.
Okay.
That people can ask themselves when they partner in business and in love.
Raised for self-reliance or loyalty?
Yeah.
Okay.
Interdependence. Do you see yourself as connected to others, and it's your connections that give you a sense of anchoring, meaning, relevance, importance, all of that? Or do you see yourself as fundamentally on your own? I think travel, curiosity, you often will have a complementarity between one person who is curious and eager to discover and goes on, and then another person. Your question about
wants to be alone or doesn't want to travel, wants to
doesn't want to, but it's also likes comfort, likes repetition, likes the familiar. I think the religious values. If you have a person who those matter a great deal. Children. Do you want family or do you not want family? If you want a family, then make sure that you find someone who wants a family. What are you going to do? Try to convince some, Now, I don't think you have to have the same values on everything. I think you have to have a similar outlook on life.
Which is?
A vision. Like exactly the same as a vision. Do you want to own a home? Do you think that economic achievement is important? Do you want to live in an extended family? You think that living intergenerationally really is important, and you have somebody else who says, I don't want your parents over.
Right.
Do you want to live in more than one place? I think these are essential, money, feelings or emotions, religious beliefs, attitude toward life. It's not a specific value about something. A value is a cluster of things. It's a cluster of importance, of systems of meanings. That's a value.
And you may not find someone with everything is the same, but someone with a similar mindset, is what you're saying. An overall
I met
feeling.
a husband of mine, with whom I am for more than 3 decades, who had never left the US when I met him.
Really?
I never knew such a person existed. Coming from Europe, that was unheard of for us.
He lived in Europe?
No, he lived in the States.
Oh, he lived in the States.
He was American. Gotcha. I came from Europe. In Europe, you travel everywhere all the time, even if you have nothing. You work 1 month, you get the money, and then you go to the next country, which is 2 hours away.
Yeah.
I
traveled outside of the US.
He had never been outside of the US. Yeah, he will always tell me he went to the Virgin Islands.
Okay.
But, for the rest, and I thought, oh my God, how does one, who is such a person? But I knew it was because of the circumstances of his life, and that if he could, he would, and he was intensely curious. If you just said, oh, he's never traveled, then you misinterpret. You don't want to just look at the manifest thing of, you want to say, and behind this, is there someone who would actually like that, who just hasn't had the opportunity and is curious and just says, let's go. So don't get fooled just by what you see. Right. Find out what is the belief behind it, the aspiration, the longing, the interest, and then you get a sense of what is the value.
Do you think I'm going to go back to expectation. Do you feel like we should should diversify expectations, or what did you say the word was? Calibrate expectations, or should we be finding someone that can reach that expectation that we want?
No, I think
you think it's just impossible?
I think you need to calibrate.
Always calibrate too.
You calibrate. You constantly will be disappointed. Do you know a single relationship where you haven't been disappointed?
No.
Okay. I mean, disappointment which can lead to suffering. Is part of a relationship. The minute you have a relationship, you have an expectation. That expectation means that you want something. Love, closeness, intimacy, partnership, business affiliation, you name it. It creates dependence. The moment you have an attachment, you have dependence. That dependence means that you have power, or I have power. If I expect something from you, I confer power on you. You have power over me, I have power over you. By definition, there will be moments when that power doesn't go in the direction that I want.
And I'll be disappointed.
Is there a single child that didn't have a disappointment from their parents? No. It doesn't exist.
Right.
This idyllic thing you're talking about, it doesn't exist. The next thing is, what do you do with that disappointment? Hey, can I come tell you? I'm really disappointed. You let me down. I thought we were in this together. I trusted you. And you say, I see your point. Or do you say, what the hell are you talking about? You're just inventing this. You're delusional. None of the, and everything in between.
Yeah.
That's how you do a relationship. It's really based on the repair. It's not based on the...
It's how we heal the disappointment.
Yes. It's how you repair all these breaches, moment by moment. You come back, and the repair is not, I'm so sorry. The repair may sometimes be, hey, do you want a glass of water?
Right.
Or, hey, did you see this article in the newspaper? John Gottman has this very interesting thing about that. He says the repair is not that you come and you do a mea culpa. It's that you do what he calls bids for connection. You show the other that they still matter. I brought a newspaper in. At a time when we still had newspapers. That was one of his examples. I brought a paper in. Like, I think of you. I'm pissed at you. You just annoyed me. We just had a spat. But you still...
I still care about you.
I still care. You're still in my life.
I still respect you. So it's how we repair disappointment on a daily or weekly or monthly basis.
Minute sometimes.
Is the success of the relationship.
And that means also how you come and you say, you take responsibility. Yes, right. I actually think that taking responsibility is the ultimate freedom.
Really?
I messed up. I shouldn't have done this. Can I do that? It really is being accountable.
Mm-hmm. What if
instead of blaming the other?
What if it actually in that moment wasn't your fault?
Doesn't matter. It wasn't. You don't have to agree with anything. I didn't mean to. It wasn't my intention.
Yeah.
We are going to slip a lot.
Right.
But it's about just saying it. And for that, it's about saying it. And for that, you have to be able to see that you're a flawed person who can be accountable without that becoming a major source of shame and I'm terrible. It's a different thing between saying I messed up and I messed up.
I like this distinction. How do we, in our mind, because I think in the past, relationships, when I messed up in a small term, right? Like a disappointment, a small disappointment, saying like, I'm sorry, or taking responsibility, or saying, you know what, that was my fault.
Was like a humiliation.
Well, it was more like, look at when I'm like, well,
why shall I?
No, it's more like, here's all the actions I'm doing right.
Right.
Today I've done this, which was an expectation, and I've done that, and I took the trash out or whatever. And I, did something kind for you, and I wrote a note, and I did this, and I took us to dinner, and I did all these things well today, but I messed up on this one thing. So for me, I used to say to myself, like, gosh, but can't you see the whole picture of like all the good things I'm doing? Why do I need to be an hour conversation about like one small thing? That's what I used to feel like. And do you feel like we should just be saying, you know what, take responsibility anyways for those moments, even if you're doing lots of good things? You know what I mean?
Yes, but
I'm not a perfect human being. It's like, I might slip.
The story is told by you.
Yes.
The other person is the one that needs to tell you about all the good things that you've done. So if you felt, I do all of this, I do one thing wrong, and now I have to go into the dark pit.
Yes.
But that's because you had a partner who did not enough tell you about all the good things you did.
So this was about me.
If you are in a relationship, you need that other person to acknowledge all of the positive stuff, so that when you have to say something about the moment that you messed up, you don't feel like, this is an endless chore.
Well, I think, exactly. Or I think it's more like, okay, if you're going to acknowledge one thing that I didn't do, at least acknowledge something of the things I did do, right?
It's not at least, it's a must.
It's a must.
It's a must.
It's not bad if I shouldn't be needing that, or I shouldn't be.
You should need it.
I should need it.
You should need it. You totally should need it.
Gotcha. Don't only acknowledge the bad, also acknowledge the good.
Not also. It's a must. It's a mandate. What happens sometimes in distressed relationships, because you were in a distressed relationship at that moment. Yes. And this is true. You can directly take this into the workplace. In a distressed relationship, the tendency is to highlight the negative and disregard the positive.
Right.
The positive is just a given. The negative will make a big deal out of it. So the one thing you didn't do becomes the whole conversation. And then what does that person do? Of course, that person says, but you disregard all the other stuff.
Yeah.
And rightly so, because it has been disregarded. In a distressed relationship, the positive, if we get there on time, it's because there was no traffic. And if we get there late, it's because of you. The good is chance, the bad is attributed to you. Or in a different version of that is what we call negative attribution error. If I am in a bad mood, it's because I had a bad day. But if you're in a bad mood, it's because you're a nasty person who is always so cantankerous.
Right.
Mine is circumstantial, yours is characterological. So when you'd say, I was in a relationship in which when I did one thing bad, it was so overblown and I felt like everything else was being disregarded, that's a sign of a distressed relationship. In and of itself.
Interesting.
The fact that because in a normal relationship, somebody else says, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Then you finally don't do something and says, oh, I really messed up there. I forgot. Sorry.
Right.
And it's not such a big deal.
Okay.
Because you are seen for the whole person.
Right.
If you have to make a speech about you should see the whole person, you're not in a good relationship.
Ah, there you go. Okay.
Or you're not in the dynamic in your relationship is not a good one.
Yeah.
No, that in itself is a sign of a bad dynamic.
Gotcha.
You shouldn't have to say this.
So I wasn't crazy. Okay, gotcha.
No.
Okay, gotcha.
No. And the interesting thing about this is how much it applies at home, and the same thing happens at work.
And at work. So is it a mandate to acknowledge team members at work as well, in the good and not just the negative?
I absolutely think so.
Yeah.
But I am not the best at it myself.
Right. So you don't acknowledge your team the best.
I do.
It's hard. When we're running the show, we see a lot of the things that are slipping through, right?
Yeah. It's like my tendency is to...
but it's different because in a relationship, it's not a paycheck, right? It's like, well, maybe there is, but it's different in terms of like an intimate relationship versus a working relationship.
How much has your team taught you? Because look, you are probably like me. We wouldn't be sitting here on some level if we were not actually more self-critical people.
Of course.
And very demanding of ourselves.
Of course.
And hence, we surround ourselves by people who we think we can be demanding from as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that is true. But it is also important that we learn to be sometimes a little kinder with ourselves and not just highlight the negative.
I know.
While at the same time asking the girlfriend to not be like that, even though you are doing it with yourself, and to also do it with our team.
Yeah.
I don't think you can go wrong, if it's not just kind of fluff. I think that acknowledging the efforts of people is a good thing to learn. And my team teaches me.
Can you have a life partner and still have a love story?
Of course. Of course. You want the life partner to be a love story too. But the love stories per se are not life stories. It's different ingredients. It's different values. There's some things that you don't need in order to have a beautiful love story with someone.